UN News.
So, kind of a continuation from your story. I wanted to go a little more in depth into specifics, right? But
sure,
we talked about, how worst case famine is playing out, right? We're literally in stage 5, right? This is from Dave DeCamp over at Anti-War. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the IPC, a global hunger monitor, said in an alert on Tuesday that the worst case scenario famine is currently playing out in the Gaza Strip due to the U.S.-backed Israeli siege on the Palestinian territory. The alert comes as Gaza Health Ministry has reported dozens of starvation deaths over the past week, and photos of emaciated children have increased international pressure on Israel to ease the blockade. Mounting evidence shows that widespread starvation, malnutrition, and disease are driving a rise in hunger-related deaths. Latest data indicates that famine thresholds have been reached for food consumption in most of the Gaza Strip and for acute malnutrition in Gaza City, the IPC said. Eva Bartlett, friend of the show, 85% of Gaza's population have entered the 5th stage of malnutrition, the most critical and dangerous phase, which is often irreversible even if food becomes available in the future. Right? So this is point of no return. They are starving these people to death. This is what a genocide looks like. So, Gazans are facing irreversible damage because of the forced starvation. They have reached the final stage of starvation, called IPC Stage 5, which is damage to permanent multi-organ failure that leads to sudden cardiac death. So we are at physical ramifications of this. People are dying of starvation. Like, that has been documented. So, I don't know what else is needed to be documented to people to do something, but again, I wanted to bring an actual experience, right? We've talked about the Gaza humanitarian centers and how they're just death traps. So this is from Refaat Ibrahim over at the EI, which shout out to the EI for bringing the voices of these people. They've been doing great work. But Refaat writes, I knew we were close to the aid site when I saw a large mass of people gathered in front of me. It had taken us all night to get here. My friend Sadah Abu Sadah and I had left Al-Mawasi near Khan Yunis at 1:30 a.m. and headed south on the coastal road Al-Rashid Street towards Rafah. Neighbors in Al-Mawasi had told us to get to the aid site as early as possible because there were not enough provisions for everyone. We thought that by leaving this early, we had a chance to get food. We walked slowly. On our left were miserable rows of tents. On our right was the seashore, calm on the surface, but with Israeli gunboats lined up along the horizon. Close enough to be visible with the naked eye, we were not alone in our walk. Many others were headed the same way. An elderly man leaned on his cane and said in commiseration, how hard it is to be hungry. God. We had 12 kilometers ahead of us, a potentially reasonable distance for a well-fed and nourished person. 12 kilometers. 12 kilometers ahead of them. But we were neither well-fed. That's a good amount.
That's about 6 miles.
6 miles, probably close. But we were...
Yeah. So it's,
yeah. But we were neither well-fed nor nourished. We walked slowly from exhaustion and hunger. The only calories fueling my body were from scant amounts of lentils and pasta that I had obtained with great difficulty and effort in previous days. My mother, brother, and 5 sisters were back at our tent in Al-Mawasi. Dizzy from hunger, they could barely move. I could no longer bear to see my family wither from starvation. This was why I was walking along the coastal road in the dark on Eid al-Adha, the 6th of June, tired and hungry, headed towards a so-called American Aid Center, a place that had declared itself on its social media page as a source of relief. The aid sites run by the American and Israeli-run Gaza Humanitarian Foundation only opened on the 27th of May, But by early June, it was already understood in Gaza that they were also death sites. Israeli troops were
Which
shooting
we talked about.
and killing us. Correct. Yet, the more news spread about these massacres, the more news spread about the aid sites themselves. It is a cruel irony that we are so starved that in the news of massacres, we also hear that there is food available and that there is a possibility that we might get some if we can only survive the site itself. Here we die of hunger, Saad said, and there we may die of bullets. At around
Lesser of the two
3:30,
evils, which-
yep, I might as well get it over with. Like, we walked into the crowd of tens of thousands of people. Ahead of the crowd was what we assumed was the aid site, but the road was blocked by concrete blocks. We stood and waited for some kind of sign to enter the aid site. It did not come. The scene of the elderly, women and men crowding at night and sitting on the rubble of houses or in the sand is a sad sight that makes everyone feel humiliated, their dignity brutally violated. I suggested to my friend that we should go and sit on the beach about 20 meters away until the sun rose. As we walked towards the beach, we had to walk past the watchtowers where snipers were stationed. Sadah pointed out that the surveillance cameras and the various red and white lights beaming from other mechanisms on the tower, saying that the soldiers used those to strengthen their transmissions. Not a minute passed until the soldiers were firing at us. Bullets flew past us at alarming speed. We backed away from the beach and went to the other side of the road, where people were sitting on rubble. We were shaken and demoralized and considered heading back to Al-Mawasi. How will we continue, Saada said, knowing that I didn't have the answer. I just kept in my mind that I was there to retrieve food and bring it back to feed my family of 6. Like, there was 6 people there, right? And then some.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have any solutions. We continued to wait. Every few minutes, we heard more bullets. Eventually, we heard a group of people yelling, "Martyr, martyr," and carrying a person who had been shot. Bullets continued to fly around us. Small stones flew in the air at us when the bullet hit the ground. The way to know everything here is through fire, that is, the firing of weapons. The occupation forces shoot a shell in an area and it explodes, meaning do not go there. Quadcopters patrol the area where the shells fall and then shoot at anyone who approaches. People are only certain they cannot go into an area because they are faced with a line of fire. We hid behind rubble and tried to protect ourselves from death. At 6 a.m., when dawn broke, a voice over a loudspeaker said in Arabic that we could enter the aid site, which was an additional 3 kilometers away. Everyone ran towards the site. Thousands of people. Concrete blocks are painted in red with phrases such as Defense Army and Dangerous Combat Zones, and surrounded by barbed wire. At a certain point, the path narrowed and only one person could pass in between the blocks at a time. It was never wide enough for 2 people to pass side by side, but people rushed and entered around the blocks or through the ruins of houses nearby. Farther on, there was an area surrounded by a tall fence, much higher than the height of a person. Inside the site, English-speaking individuals allowed people to enter. There were some empty boxes that said GHF and that once contained food. Very little was left by the time we arrived. One of the occupation soldiers fired a bullet into the crowd and hit a 50-year-old man in front. The man fell down and he looked dead. A group of people carried him away. One man held up his bloody hands at the soldiers and yelled at them, "You killed the man." I don't think the soldiers understood what the man said to them, but they did understand the bloody hands. Minutes later, trucks arrived and unloaded their cargo. The amount of aid was barely enough for a few thousand. We were many more than that. We arrived at the distribution point, but there was nothing left. We walked around and tried to find anything left inside the fence. It was like we were in a prison. It seems that we will return empty-handed, I told Saada. I don't know what we will do, he said. They are waiting for me to return with flour. We spent half an hour inside the place, still nothing. We were in a desert prison surrounded by weapons, facing the Israeli soldiers on empty stomachs. We left around 7:30 a.m. and walked back in silence. Saada said that we would have to come back the next day, but that this time we would not try to take a rest on the beach, lest the soldiers shoot at us again. I replied with a sad sarcasm, "You have formed bad memories quickly, my friend." We returned to Al-Mawasi empty-handed, though we carried with us new truths that no one should ever have to be exposed to. This is what it is to be an unwanted person. 2 days later, by the 8th of June, it was reported that 130 Palestinians had been killed at these sites. Since then, this number has risen to around 900. So this is from Israel-Palestine News, right? They write, 10 die of starvation, Gaza doctors becoming too weak to treat patients. War on Gaza, day 656. Doctors are in a state of extreme exhaustion. Some have fainted in the operating room, said Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, the director of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, who said that, like the people of Gaza, staff had not received any aid or had any meals in the past 48 hours. Medical services will be affected because our staff will not be able to hold out any longer in the face of this famine. So this is from Translating Palestine, right? And this was a dinner shared by 2 journalists stationed in the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis, right? So similar situation, and this was the meal they had. Who remained steadfast in front of the Nasser Medical Complex. A little oil and salt. Half a tomato. And 2 pieces of flatbread.
Bread.
For 2 people. I mean, Samir needs 4 of these loaves to feel somewhat full. Today there is only 1 loaf. For both of them with 1 tomato and some olive oil. This is dinner. What do you think, guys? Thank God this is a blessing. This is what's available. What are we to do? You're a blessing. Thank God. Enjoy. So I wrote some bread and a bit of oil. They still call it a blessing. Keep in mind, someone probably risked their life just to get the flour for that bread. Ones in power sit happy with full fridges. Some of the food that makes it in has also been reported to be laced or poisoned or otherwise tainted. So things are not looking good. Dave DeCamp, 14 more Palestinians starved to death in Gaza. Right? So the Gaza Health Ministry said on Monday that at least 14 more Palestinians have died of starvation. Gaza Strip hospitals recorded 14 new deaths in the past 24 hours due to famine and malnutrition. That brings the number of deaths from famine to 147, including 88 children. A source at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City told Al Jazeera that among the dead was Muhammad Ibrahim Adas, an infant who died of malnutrition due to the shortage of baby formula. Babies have been especially vulnerable since malnourished mothers are unable to produce breast milk. MondoWeiss, Palestinian women were told to go to U.S.-run aid sites in Gaza. They were killed and beaten instead. So I don't know if you knew this, right? But they made it to where those GHF aid sites were like female only, right? So the Israeli-backed and U.S.-run Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said that its distribution on Thursday would only be for Palestinian women. Eyewitnesses say that the GHF staff pepper sprayed them and beat them with batons. 2 women were killed. So Ragda Abu Adeh, an aid seeker from today's incident, arrived at the site at 5 a.m. from Deir al-Balah. I belong to a family of 9 daughters and 1 brother, she says. My father was shot in the head at one of the aid sitters weeks ago. He is now bedridden and immobile. When we heard that the distribution was for women only, I walked to the location to get food, but I did not witness any food distribution. It was distribution of death. The American organization said the distribution would be organized and safe and that every woman would receive an aid box, Abu Adeh continued. We went there immediately because we're dying of hunger. But we arrived only to see the Palestinian women being humiliated, beaten, sprayed with pepper, stuck with batons, and bullets fired over our heads. Abu Adeh says that shortly after arriving at the distribution center, Israeli tanks and armored vehicles that had been stationed outside the center advanced toward them, opening heavy machine gun fire over their heads. Then there were tear gas canisters launched among us and stun grenades thrown directly at us, she recounts. They brought us here to openly humiliate us. I didn't receive any food. Many of the women who came didn't receive any food. Maybe 20% of those who arrived got something. The rest were subjugated to humiliation and oppression. Abu Adeh described seeing a pregnant woman struggling and bleeding in the middle of the crowd. Due to the chaos and fear of being shot, she then says that one of the GHA staff members hit her multiple times on her stomach with a baton. She screamed that she was pregnant, but no one listened. Instead, they hit her more until she collapsed to the ground. Some women managed to pull her away, and she was taken to a hospital. Abu Adeh also describes how the GHF employees pepper sprayed women in the face until it burned, and also recounts the use of obscene insults that were hurled at them by GHF staff that spoke in Arabic. Why were we called to this? To be humiliated in every possible way? Abu Adeh says we don't want their aid. We want them to shut down this place and for food distribution to return to what it was before this organization into lethal weapons arrives. It doesn't feed us, it kills us. And the excuse for why that food distribution is not the way it is because Hamas allegedly was stealing the aid. You were saying?
Keep in mind this organization is American.
Yeah. Yep. So we're flat out fucked, says Jax Page. Fiorella says, happy Saturday. The fact that children are starving in Gaza and there's still a genocide, but Israel hasn't been held accountable or stopped, while those with power to stop them aren't doing it. Says everything about who we are as a species. There's no excuse. We're doomed. Why are so many appalled that Israel is starving Gazans? Why now? Answer, because it's being posed as a humanitarian hunger crisis, while bombing them was justified in their mind because they deserved it for October 7th, Hamas, war, etc. Either way, Israel doesn't get held accountable. Mara Osman, Malek SH writes on Facebook from Gaza, a clarification for our fellow Arabs has become necessary as the ongoing confusion surrounding aid deliveries is causing us real psychological harm. On average, only 15 to 25 trucks are entering Gaza daily. They are completely looted by thieves, warlords, and addicts, and the goods are then resold at exorbitant prices on the black market. This means absolutely nothing has changed. Airdrop aid is futile and usually airdropped into no-go zones for people to be shot at. The cargo of a single plane is equivalent to just 2 trucks. And it's an expensive, ineffective exercise. The drops often land in areas controlled by the military or on tents housing displaced families, rendering them practically inaccessible. And I don't know if you remember stories from a week ago where aid was literally dropped on people, killing them. So
right, and this also brings a certain flotilla.
Yeah, single aid point distribution ain't gonna fucking work either.
We will not name. Right, of a person we will not name here, but you guys know who this person is.
A couple of people involved with that.
Right, who went in the pretext of sending formula.
Right.
You know, and according to Indy, the aid is going to end up in a no-go zone. So Palestinians won't be able to access that anyway. So again, this is kind of like, on one hand, I kind of get why people are doing it, but again, what's your intent and what is your strategy in order to ensure? Because even with that story, like, and this is my argument that I've been saying to you and Indy personally, like, the idea of the aid is not the main story. like the actions that happened to this person is. And to me, that shouldn't be the main story.
Yeah.
Like, if you're intending to get the aid, why didn't the aid get there?
Yeah.
And
then on top of that, a single point aid distribution system clearly hasn't fucking worked there. Like,
right.
Anyway, to our
so and again, it kind of brings it about the idea of like, what makes you think you guys are so special that somehow magically you will be able to get this aid through?
Yeah,
like, what
partially because of the celebrity, happen? I think. You know, which Israel, I think, has called it it's a selfie ship. It's performative. But that's just me.
Right.
You know, knowing who's behind that, I definitely feel that way. But to our Egyptian brothers, we appreciate the intent, but throwing bottles of rice and lentils into the sea is sheer nonsense and a waste of resources. They do not and will not reach us. The videos showing successful retrievals are mere theatrics staged by war opportunists. The fruits you've seen circulating online, a handful stolen off aid trucks with prices reaching $105 per kilo, they were purchased and distributed by a few individuals and corrupt donation middlemen solely to keep your donations flowing their way. The rest of the population hasn't even caught a glimpse of them. The bottom line, nothing has changed. The famine continues. The number of children from dying from malnutrition is still rising. We are still collapsing in the streets. We are still being starved into annihilation. So, Eva Karine Bartlett, former U.S. Special Forces veteran, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, says he routinely witnessed Israeli forces and American colleagues deliberately targeting and killing unarmed Palestinian civilians at GHF anti-humanitarian death traps. They're criminal. In my entire career, I have never witnessed the level of brutality and use of indiscriminate and unnecessary force against a civilian population, an unarmed, starving population. I've never witnessed that in all the places I've been deployed to war until I was in Gaza at the hands of the IDF and the U.S. contractors. Without question, I witnessed war crimes by the IDF, without a doubt, using artillery rounds, mortar rounds, firing tank rounds into unarmed civilians is a war crime. And, homie, they may be unarmed, but you're not. You see shit happens, you got a fucking duty to protect innocent civilians. Like, you might have to risk it for that biscuit. Just saying. Like, you went over there. Vanessa, another Zionist lie, crashes and burns. No reports alleging Hamas benefited from U.S.-funded supplies, according to a slide presentation of the findings seen by Reuters. So, again, this has to do with, like, this is one of the reasons why they changed aid systems and moved UNRWA and was claiming that Hamas was doing that. Meanwhile, their own ISIS brigades that are funded by Israel. So, Dave DeCamp, Israel is starving the Palestinians with help from the U.S. U.S. government review found no evidence of systematic looting or aid by Hamas. We also know that Israel has been arming a gang that has been responsible for the looting. So, here's Reuters. International U.S. government analysis found no evidence of systemic theft by the Palestinian militant group Hamas of U.S.-funded humanitarian supplies. The analysis, which has been previously reported, was conducted by a bureau within the U.S. Agency for International Development and completed in late June. It examined 156 incidents of theft or loss reported by U.S. aid partner organizations between October and May. So, Dave DeCamp calling it out. But I'll end with this. This is from MondoWeiss that says, don't stop talking about the famine in Gaza. Israel wants you to believe that airdrops and symbolic aid trucks will solve the famine in Gaza. Don't believe them. These measures are not meant to end hunger, only to quell growing global outrage as the genocide continues unchecked. Israel wants the famine to appear complicated, something out of its hands and nearly impossible to resolve. However, improving quality of life and ending the crisis can be done quickly and easily by simply opening the crossings and allowing aid, medicine, and commercial goods to enter. It is striking how they tried to invent other methods such as airdrops or the GHF, but these are well-planned performances. Both share humiliation and carry the underlying message that aid will not reach everyone equally. They are solutions that are not meant to solve. Don't stop talking about the famine and genocide. Don't let Israel and the complicit Arab countries manipulate you into thinking they've made efforts or a difference. Famine isn't over. It still exists, and the killing has not stopped for almost 2 fucking years. 2 years we've been talking about this. When will people listen? Thoughts, Care Bear?
I mean, people are listening. People are seeing it.
Yeah.
But again, as I said earlier in the last segment, it's, again, and it's funny, we got a comment like a few weeks ago before we went on hiatus. Basically, someone was saying that, whether it was above, whatever, basically saying that you and I are cosplaying
Oh, yeah, whatever.
revolutionaries. And it's like, first of all, we have never, I'm not sure about you,
There's
but
much better
I
things
have
to cosplay
never,
on top of that. Just
ever,
saying.
I have never, ever said on this show or otherwise that I want to be a revolutionary. Far from it. If anything, I say I am a political commentator, and I wouldn't even call myself a good one at that.
Yeah, y'all
I'm
don't
a
want me
teacher
leading
that
the charge. I'm gonna be fucking making rash
Right.
decisions. Sorry.
Right.
you know, I'm not that guy.
I mean, they might have disagreed with the segment that we did that they made that comment, but we definitely do not call ourselves revolutionary.
Yeah, that comment was under fucking people thinking Mom Donnie was the fucking, yeah, fuck you, we know better. So
right,
we know how this works.
And we listen to people who have been in the field that know better, that we actually agree with. So, but that being said, I do not have the answers to this, but that's not my job. Well, it's not to say that's not my job. I'm not in a position to really do a whole lot other than talk, and educate you guys.
I'm looking for the opportunities. The minute I see some opportunities, I'll let you guys know. That's what we're here for. So,
right.
Anyway.
But I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's just, I don't know. What else more can I say other than what I haven't said already?
I feel you.
Like, it's not to say the people that are responsible, that can change things, are not doing anything. And again, it's the idea that certain people might feel that if you talk to the right politicians and say the nice words and appeal to whatever humanity they have in their hearts, that somehow they will be changed and see the light and will come to the error of their ways and make the change. And again, it's the idea, if they really wanted to do it, they would have done it already. They don't care. So stop platforming these people in the hope that you think that your words or your actions is going to make them do the right thing. They know what the right thing is to do. They're not doing it because they're bought, paid, and sold by corporations and lobbyists that benefit from this genocide.
It seems that the only time you get in a position of power is if you like the people that are in power.
Right. So, and I don't know. Again, it's like, I think we're trying to make heroes of certain people in doing the bare minimum, or I would argue even not the right thing to do. But I get it because we're desperate. And so I think really the talks that we should be having now, what can be done seriously, as you keep saying, to make politicians scared? What will actually make them scared, and what will make corporations and lobbyists scared that they are forced to do the right thing? Because it's not going to happen just by, like, nice words from us. And again, appealing to people's humanity when they have. And that's the problem. We assume that these people have a conscience. They don't have any. So if you don't have a conscience, you're a fucking demon. So, and you need to deal with demons appropriately. And that's not with nice words. You know? So, sorry, but that's the way it is. So, tactically, we need to do something different. And again, I'm not revolutionary. I do not have the answers to this. You know, I'm not sure even within our family, and I don't expect them to necessarily have the answers to this anyway. The only thing that we can do right now is kind of talk about these things and hope we get to the right people that maybe, just maybe, there could be a way that we can kind of get together and perhaps form some type of strategy among, you know, the working class in this country to actually cause something. But I don't know what it is.
You know my strategy.
So
GUILLOTINE. Yeah, what might seem barbaric is the last resort to me.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel you. I kind of think you just going for the actual real power above the politicians is what you should do. You know?
Yeah.
So, but
well, that's what I mean by lobbyists and
yeah,
but
for sure. Talking about that kind of stuff and looking for solutions is why YouTube's decided we shouldn't get any money. So if you want to get around that system, you can go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network or scan that QR code on your screen. Links are always in the description below. But other than that, you could just do all the algorithm stuff. Like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching.